What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, I wanted to showcase Claydol one last time before the Open Great League went away. This Pokemon is one of my favorite new picks in the meta. It's a Mud Slapper, but a Mud Slapper that's not necessarily hard-walled by flying types or by grass types thanks to its coverage moves here. Let's get into the battles and see what this Pokemon can do. First game of the day, we're going to see our Claydol as our lead Pokemon in a bit of an awkward matchup here. Shadow Sableye is not something that's really great to see, and because I do have two Pokemon in the backline, I'm going to swap out instantly and see what our opponent has in store for us. We see a Clodsire as the counter swap into our Shadow Drapion, and while Drapion's one weakness is going to be that ground type damage, we have to keep in mind Clodsire is restricted to only doing resisted damage unless they can land a full Earthquake against us here, so we're going to be in a pretty good spot. They do go for a bait though. Because of that Stone Edge bait, they are one less poison sting away from their Earthquake before I'm going to have to throw my energy, so I will throw once again, but Aqua Tail is just so spammy. Drapion trying its very best here to spam out these charges and draw shields from this Clodsire. We go for a CMP here at this point. If Clodsire doesn't want to get sniped down with a full Earthquake of energy, we're going to see a shield come up, and they do shield the first time on this Clodsire. But because this Shadow Drapion is just so spammy at this point, there's no way they can win switch against us right now. They actually end up swapping out. They know at this point that they're not going to reach another charge move, so instead of staying in letting me overfarm, they swap back into Sableye. I go for a crunch, we get a shield, and we come in with our Shadow Jump Bluff. This matchup is a precarious one, kind of in the Zero Shield matchup. Up this much energy, Sableye might land a Power Gem into us, but I know I can survive that attack, and it's not going to be too important if I take a second Foul Play here. They're not on Power Gem from what I can tell. They're on Foul Play and likely Dazzling Gleam. Because of that, I can survive these two charges very easily, go for an Acrobatics, knock out this Pokemon, and still have a bit of HP left over on a Shadow Jump Bluff. We also still have our Shadow Drapion and a full HP Claydol on the backline that, as we have said, gets to avoid the Sableye. In comes a Jump Bluff here, a Pokemon that does not want to take a full-on Aerial Ace here. Shadow into Shadow, it's going to do about half of their HP, and despite the fact that this is a Pokemon that generally has play into Mud Slappers, we have Ice Beam, we have Rock Tomb as well, there's almost nothing our opponent can do. We still have our Shadow Drapion on the backline as well, so even if somehow Claydol goes down here, it's totally fine. We can go for Crunches, Poison Stings, Aqua Tails, spam out all the charges we need. That Clodsire in the backline is Energy Dry, no catch ends up happening. Rock Tomb, not quite enough damage here to knock out, but because they were forced to throw energy against us to knock us out, and after that debuff, it's going to have to be an Acrobatics, our Shadow Drapion should have what it takes to win this endgame matchup. Acrobatics does end up landing, but in comes Shadow Drapion, just a couple Poison Stings away from that Aqua Tail. Our opponent ends up top lifting. GG's to our opponent. Next game, we're going to see a Greninja in the lead. We haven't seen too many of these this season, but it's a Pokemon that is remarkably bad for our team, right? It's a Water and Dark type up against my Ground and Psychic type, so one of the worst lead matchups you could see. With that said, we know just how powerful Rock Tomb can be. I'm going to start adding up as much damage as I can with these Mud Slaps, then going for a debuff with this Rock Tomb. But if you saw there, my opponent went for a nice Night Slash bait against us. That is kind of catastrophic for us right now, because I know they are going to be so spammy anyway. They don't need to go for baits, and yet they got a successful one off against us. In the back, we're going to see a Gligar. What is this team so far from our opponent? Very crazy stuff. Fury Cutter, Gligar at that. I know Dig would basically one-shot us, but I also know Aqua Tail is a very powerful move, and we're such a spammy Pokemon here that the longer this matchup goes, the better it's going to be for Shadow Drapion. In comes the second charge move. It's likely going to be shielded. Actually, no, they survive. They know their Gligar better than I do, and because they're able to survive that attack, I'm going to have to shield this Dig and go down once again with our shields. I do feel like Switch Advantage, though, is very important, saying I have a Shadow Jump Bluff that can tank the energy from this Greninja. In comes that Greninja. I go for a catch on our Jump Bluff here, just hoping the final Pokemon's not going to be an absolutely abysmal matchup for us here, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's some sort of Jump Bluff answer. In the background, we're going to see they're actually building up way too much energy here. That's incredibly scary. I guess this trainer is just way back a couple seasons ago. They're using the previous meta Pokemon here, Gligar as well as Skarmory. Very crazy stuff. I know that we have play with Acrobatics, but we are not going to have a ton of play here with our Shadow Jump Bluff. These Stealings adding up way too quickly, but we might force energy out of them here. I think I might be able to three-shot them with these charge moves. Yeah, it's looking like it here, so our opponent might be forced into throwing a Sky Attack. They won't get a full farm down, so maybe there's still a chance for us, but it will be a little bit tricky if I want to win this game, because that Greninja in the backline has back-to-back Hydro Cannons, and I'm not sure I can win this game. We go instantly for this Aqua Tail. I know at this point it's going to do a decent chunk. It'll actually knock them out. They don't choose to shield. They're saving all of their shields right now for Greninja, and in comes our Claydol to get as much Mud Slap damage as we can. I am hoping that we survive this charge move right now. In comes the Hydro. We get knocked out. In comes our Drapion. If I can survive this attack, I might be able to win this game, but if it doesn't hold on, they're going to take out our Drapion, and unfortunately just barely losing that matchup. I'm sure both of those knockouts are like 1 HP winner lose those games, so very unfortunate stuff, but GG to our opponent. Next game, I'm going to see the Unova Stunfisk up against our Mud Slapper, one of the best lead matchups you can see, and a Shadow Sableye as a safe swap. So this is looking like a team I used the other day, right? I used a Unova Stunfisk team myself with a Jump Bluff in the backline. If that is the case, then we might have just RPS'd an opposing trainer, unfortunately, using a new team against my old team here. It comes Acrobatics. Let's see if they opt to try to call the bait, or if they shield the nuke. They do let it go. Fantastic news for us, although they will get a decent amount of energy on their Ufisk. The reason I was using this Pokemon the other day is, as we all know, electric typing is able to resist flying type damage, and most of these Jump Bluff right now are running the flying flying type charge moves, right? No grass coverage on my grass type Pokemon, which means that while I am normally in a good matchup against this Pokemon, they are able to go for an overfarm here, just take an acrobatics and survive very easily, as well as come out of this matchup with quite a bit of energy. This charge does knock us out here, but I still have my Mud Sapper ready to go, and in the backline, of course, yeah, Shadow Jump Left, so we have RPS, my own creation here with my new creation, I guess. We're going to see what they're going to throw. Shield up a potential acrobatics. I don't want to get one shot here. We know how powerful that move can be. I've been using a lot of jump off myself recently, so I don't want to let my Shadow Drapion go down just yet. If I can get both shields from them here, then that's going to be all I need to win this game. That's why Rock Tomb and Ice Beam are just such nice coverage moves against Pokemon like this. If my Drapion does go down to a double bait plus an acrobatics, that is totally fine by me. Claydol should round out this endgame. Acrobatics ends up getting the shield there from us, which means now they're not going to be able to get to another charge attack, at least not another acrobatics before I'm able to get to a final crunch. With that said, they have energy on that Ufisk. They might try to make a catch here. We go and see if they're going to do that. They don't go for the catch, so they actually just end up top lefting, and Claydol able to close out that endgame in the back. Next matchup, a bit of a tricky lead matchup for our team. We're a little bit ABA soft to ice type damage, right? We have our Claydol as well as our Shadow Jump Up that really don't want to see ice type fast move pressure, but because we have Rock Tomb, it would do a lot to Dugong, but they actually just made a catch, I think, on an Annihilate, a catastrophic play for us right now, because that not only drained all of our energy, but caught a move on a Pokemon that honestly I didn't need to chip and dip. My Jump Up is such a good answer here normally that because now they've drained the energy, I'm in a pretty precarious spot where I don't exactly know how I'm going to take out that Dugong when they're up so much energy, and I'm not able to slow them down as quickly with debuffs. I'm going to go for the Aerial Ace here, maybe get an undercharge. Let's see if that even gives us an extra fast move or two. One extra fast move, which is kind of nice. We have an acrobatics ready to go. No energy ball. If I did have that, once again, it would be super effective in this matchup, but acrobatics is still a formidable charge move. Does a decent chunk of their HP here, and now we'll see what we can do. I'm expecting an instant Icy Wind here, so I'm going to come in with a Shadow Drapion trying to catch the move, hoping that Claydol in the backline is going to have just a little bit more play. Our opponent, though, is very patient. They go for one or two extra fast moves here. Unfortunately, one turn lag making it so throwing on alignment was a good play for them. Likely going to be a drill run now. Yeah, it's going to be a super effective charge attack into us, and they have another Icy Wind in the backline. I, at the very least, can go for this Aqua Tail here, maybe chip down their own Claydol, but this is going to be a precarious endgame where I know at this point Mud Slap, Ice Shard, all these charge moves, they're going to start adding up, and that was only 5. I have to call that this is a Rock Tomb if I want to have any chance to win this game, but if I call it, that's even more damage that I have to suffer on my Claydol, and I don't think an Ice Beam can knock out at this point, especially after that debuff. We're going to throw it here and just make sure if they do no-shield that at least I'll get some damage off into them, but I'm not even going to reach another Ice Beam here. I get fully Mud Slap down, unfortunately for us, not quite able to win that game. All right, next matchup, Claydol into Shadow Dragonite. Okay, not a great matchup for most Mud Slappers, but we have to keep in mind Claydol is among one of the bulkier Mud Slappers that we have access to, as well as a Pokemon that does have access to Rock Tomb and Ice Beam. Now, while Shadow Dragonite is very scary, it always has to shield basically every charge move in the game, and Rock Tomb is no exception. Here we go for it. Our opponent is going to have to shield, which means at least we'll get a shield advantage for our backline. I'm kind of worried right now that it's going to be that Shadow, Alolan Sandslash, and Jellicent backline, and while Jellicent isn't a Pokemon I'm too scared of with my Drapion or my Jumpluff, I have to keep in mind that Sandslash would be catastrophic for us to see. So with that said, I'm going to try to bait it out with their Shadow Drapion, see what they're going to do. They overfarm a ton of energy. They're not actually swapping out. They're still on that attack drop, right? So I'm happy to take this debuff damage here, build up as much energy as I can, and start spamming out charge moves. I go for an Aqua Tail, we get the shield, I go for a second one right before the next Dragon Claw. I think this is going to be enough to knock them out here, and now I have energy and shields on my Shadow Drapion. Can I win this endgame? Looks like they come in with that A-Slash. Fortunately for us, it's going to be the Shadow Claw variant, which is so much easier for us to face. If they're on Powder Snow, they might have a chance to go for a full fast move farm down, but because they are on the Shadow Claw variant, not quite able to farm us down here before I can reach another charge attack, I'm expecting a catch right now. I feel like that's always going to be the play here, so keep on overfarming, see what's going to come in, and we do see a Jellicent, but at this point, I know they're not quite yet at an Ice Punch, so I can still throw this move. I can come in with our Shadow Jump Fluff, build up to back-to-back charge moves here, and we should have this game. All right, next matchup, Claydol up against a Dugong once again. We just saw this matchup in the previous game or a couple games ago. Was not too great for us, but we do have play, right? If they stay in this matchup, it's honestly not that bad for Claydol. And if they CMP us and they no-shield the first Rock Tomb, it's actually a pretty good spot to be in, where I can swap out, clear my own debuff, and get an undebuffed Rock Tomb into them. And this is looking a little bit better than it was the last time we saw this lead. In comes an Icy Wind. It will debuff our attack stat, so I don't want to stay switch locked with this debuff. I come in Shadow Drapion, and we end up baiting out a Claydol. So the thing about Claydol is it is a very bulky Pokemon, but Drapion, while it is weak to Mud Slap, has access to a lot of super effective charge pressure into this, right? Crunch is going to do a lot. They actually opt to shield the first Crunch. I guess good play by them here. I do reach a second one, but because I'm able to get the shield advantage in this game, there might still be a little bit of play for us right now, but I am slightly worried right now about how much energy this Claydol has. We know the coverage moves they could have. Ice Beam nearly would one-shot us here. They might just spam out Rock Tomb to debuff our attack and still do quite a bit of damage. So I think at this point, double shield our Shadow Jump Bluff and try to farm down. Fortunately for us, though, they do go for an Ice Beam rather than potentially going for a Rock Tomb debuff. And because of that, I think we're in a decent spot where I can just double shield farm all the way down. In comes an Ice Beam and then a Rock Tomb on the second move. And because now I can go for a full farm down, energy lead on my jump off is going to be critical to winning this game. We know there's still that Dugong in the backline. We see the final Pokemon is going to be this Charjabug, a Pokemon that while I am debuffed, doesn't really want to take 2 acrobatics. Nonetheless, yeah, able to basically 2-shot here, which is fantastic news. We're not going to get 1-shot from a charge move from this Charjabug, right? Because Charjabug, it's not going to have super effective damage into us, despite being a bug type into a grass type and an electric type into a flying type. Both of our typings kind of just neutralize each other here, and comes in acrobatics. We do end up knocking them out, and at this point, Dugong comes back in. I think we're in a pretty good spot right now. I have an Aerial Ace ready to go. If they no-shield this, I can go for a farm down. If they shield this up, then potentially I want to start coming back in Claydol here. They can't farm us all the way down, and because now I've cleared my debuff on my Shadow Jump Bluff, we can knock them out with an Aerial Ace. In comes the Icy Wind. It will take out our Claydol, but at this point, we're so close to another ace here. We can reach it, knock out the Ice-type Pokemon with our Flying and Grass-type, and just barely clinch out this endgame matchup. In comes the ace. It knocks out the Dugong. GG there to our opponent. All right, next game, we're going to see our Claydol as our lead up against the opposing Claydol, a person of culture here, trying out one of the most fun new Mud Slappers in the game, and we're going to see what moveset they have here. It's going to come down to baits, maybe if they want to go for CMP as well. We'll see what's going to happen. They actually just go straight for a charge move. I guess that could be a Scorching Sands here. Let's see if it's a Rock Tomb or a different charge move, I guess. No, it is a Scorching Sands. It does a decent amount of damage. It also gets an attack drop into us here. Not exactly what you want to see, but I'm kind of hoping right now, even if I do end up losing this mirror match, then once this is gone, my Shadow Drapion should have a bit more play. So I'm fine letting Claydol go down here and leverage shield advantage Shadow Drapion in the backline. In comes another charge move, likely going to be another Scorching Sands. I could have caught this move, but I don't want to switch block a Shadow Jump Bluff when there's likely going to be some sort of Jump Bluff answer in the back. In comes an Acrobatics here to knock out this Claydol. I know at this point Mudslap is not going to do anything, but if they can reach that charge move, I would take a ton of damage. In comes the attack. It knocks them out. And what's in the backline? Bastiodon, not what we want to see, and Shadow Annihilate. So my hope that once Claydol was gone, that was their best answer to our Shadow Drapion. That was for naught here. They actually had basically 3 of the best answers in the game to this Pokemon. And while Drapion has played into Bastiodon, there's no way that we'll have enough HP on our Drapion here once this matchup's over. They're able to just counter us all the way down, and we're on double flying jump bluff. Basti just destroys our backline here. All right, next matchup, we're going to see Claydol up against a Diggersby, a battle of the opposing ground-type Pokemon. We do have access to Ice Beam, but if they debuff us or just try to play out this matchup the longer it goes and they shield up my Ice Beams, it can get a little bit precarious for us. In comes the first charge move. Scorching Sands almost certainly going to be thrown here, and we'll see what our opponent is going to do. No debuff, fantastic stuff, and they don't make a catch here as well, which is very nice. Ice Beam is going to do a decent chunk of damage, and we'll see just how they want to play out this matchup. If they swap out or if they're just going to stay in for the long haul. Looks like they are staying in here, and they're going to throw another Scorching Sands here into our Claydol. I think at this point, this is all of their energy, right? So if I swap out, I can make their life just a little bit annoying here because Diggersby is generally going to be the best answer on a team to our Shadow Drapion. So we come in with our Drapion, try to make their life just a little bit uncomfortable, and it looks like it's working. They came in with a Togetic of all things, a Pokemon that, while I'm not going to have any super effective charging pressure for, these Aqua Tails are going to add up. Poison Sting as well is going to put in so much work into this. I might be able to just shield and farm them all the way down. They might have access to Psyshock, maybe Aerial Ace, maybe Dazzling Gleam. I'm going to shield. They have a lot of energy. I know at this point, if this is a Psyshock bait, they're only going to get to another Psyshock. They will never get to another Dazzling Gleam. So because they did go for that bait move, I'm going to no-shield once again, and just at this point try to leverage this energy on Shadow Drapion against whatever is going to be in the backline. I try to go for an Aqua Tail just in case that Diggersby comes in, but because I threw instantly, we give a full Charm over to this Wigglytuff. Not the best play, but we're still able to survive long enough to get to another Aqua Tail, and I think this chip damage is going to be vital to making it so our Shadow Jump Bluff in the backline should be able to win. We actually just draw a shield with an Aqua Tail here of all things, which is fantastic for us to see. Now an Acrobatics is going to knock them out potentially if they do let this go. They can shield this, go for an Icy Wind if they want to, but I think that's still going to be fine. They're still going to be in range where an Acrobatics could knock them out. And despite having some energy on that Diggersby, it's not going to be the end of the world. Fire Punch is not that big of a move, and it's from a Diggersby of all things. So we shield up. It's actually going to be on a swift and interesting attack here from our opponent. And because they swap back into Diggersby, might as well not take a charge move here. I know if I take a Fire Punch, I'm in a precarious health range, and Jump Off is so spammy at this point, I can go for another Aerial Ace here right before the next Swift will be reached, and make sure that I can either farm down with our Claydol, or potentially just knock them out here with more Fairy Winds and more faster pressure with our Drapion. One more Mudslap is all it takes. We're able to win that match. All right, next game, we're going to see a Claydol into a Carbink, a Pokemon you don't see too often, but honestly a pretty good meta read right now. I know Carbink is not exactly the most fun Pokemon to use, but there's a lot of Pokemon right now that are a little bit soft to a Rock and Fairy type Pokemon, especially one that bulky. So we'll see what is going to happen here in this game. Luckily, I swapped into the Shadow Nighthawk so quick that I was able to outpace them right before this Ice Punch is going to be reached. So if they want to shield this matchup, they can, but it's going to make it so I never have to go down shields if I want to keep switch. Vaporeon's not the worst case scenario to see into Carbink, but I would much rather keep our Claydol away from whatever the final Pokemon is going to be. They're already pretty weak to Claydol with Annihilate as well as Carbink, so I would have to imagine the final Pokemon is actually going to be a Claydol answer, maybe a Grass type, maybe a Water type like Golisopod. We'll have to see what they're going to actually have here, but I'm going to just let our Jumpluff go all the way down here, trip them down with Acrobatics, and see what we can do. Acrobatics, despite being resisted and despite being thrown into a Carbink of all things, does do a sizable amount of damage. I might put them at about half HP here after the second charge move, which is nice. Once again, Energy Ball would be a little bit better here, but I do prefer the coverage and flexibility that you actually end up getting with Acrobatics. It's just such a much better move in a lot of neutral scenarios here. So not having Energy Ball does kind of hurt there, but it's not really going to matter, right? They have a Lapras in the backline. Drapion is a decent answer to this. We get a defense drop as well, which while that is helpful, it's not really going to matter that much. Drapion is still going to be able to do what it would do anyway in this matchup, where I can spam out crunches, maybe even just get it into fast move farm down range. But because of that debuff, I'm actually just going to go straight for an Aqua Tail, because as long as they let this through, I can mud step this all the way down. And I mean, if they shield an Aqua Tail, they can be my guest. In comes another charge move in just a second here. They end up throwing a charge move of their own, but because I know that we just have so much that we can use with our Claydol, we can just let this move through, go for a mud slap down, and then potentially at this point land a charge move up against that Carbink and win this game. In comes a Sparkling Aria. I know I'm going to be able to mud slap all the way down, and once this Lapras goes down, we should win. In comes a Carbink, though, and I'm kind of thinking at this point, I don't want to take any chances. They did clear that defense drop. There's a chance here I'm not going to be able to quite as easily go for a full mud slap down against that Lapras, but I also know I survived 2 Moonblasts here. Might as well just build up to back-to-back Rock Slides, or Rock Tombs, that is. Go for one against Carbink, go for one against that Lapras when it comes back in here, and we should be able to take the win by going for these back-to-back charge moves. Down goes Carbink, down goes Lapras to this next Rock Tomb. Looks like this game is going to be ours. Claydol able to get a nice little endgame sweep here in this match. All right, next matchup, we're going to see our Claydol once again as our lead Pokemon into a Talonflame. So a flying type Pokemon, something that most Mudsappers do kind of struggle against, but once again, Claydol's kind of bulky, right? We can tank these Incinerates a lot better than a lot of Mudsappers can, and Rock Tomb can debuff their attack stat as well, which makes their life just a little bit more tricky than they'd like it to be. Rock Tomb is going to come through and likely draw a shield. If they no-shield that, they get one shot, so yeah, basically a guaranteed shield every time you throw a move with Claydol into Talonflame. In comes a charge move. A Brave Bird might do a lot of damage, but anything else, they are at -1 attack. We're able to survive that attack here, and now Claydol is almost at yet another Rock Tomb against this Talon. In comes the charge move. I think at this point, if I shield, I can get a guaranteed second shield, or just a KO against a Pokemon that I really don't want to see with our Shadow Jumpluff in the backline. I'm going to go for the Rock Tomb, our opponent. If they shield this up, I don't want to give him a whole farm down, because at that point, that would be just a little bit too scary. I come in with their Shadow Drapion, go for the Poison Stings, and shield up. Honestly, at this point, they've shown Flame Charge, right? So it's probably not on Brave Bird. I can no-shield a debuff Fly, survive that attack here, and see what they come in with. Yeah, it's going to be a Clodsire in the backline, so a Pokemon that my Jumpluff does like to avoid, and because I still have a shield, this is going to be kind of awkward for them to take out my Shadow Drapion. I also still have my Claydol, which can put in quite a bit of work into this Clodsire, despite not being very healthy, because the Mud Zaps are going to add up so quickly. Comes yet another Aqua Tail. Our opponent is in range where the third charge would knock him out, but very nice counting by them. They're able to throw right before I'm able to get a move, and I don't quite want to go down all my shields just yet, so I'm going to let this through, and they go for a full-on Earthquake, so we have no idea what their secondary attack is going to be. Claydol once again able to come in, go for some Mud Slap damage, just guarantee that we drain all of their energy here, and our Shadow Jumpluff in the backline should be able to knock this out with an Aerial Ace. They've already had 2 very strong answers so far to our Jumpluff, so I want to make sure that we have as healthy of a Jumpluff as we can. I don't want to take a charge move quite yet. I know that Talon might get to another charge move here, which could be a little bit tricky for us to deal with, but Jumpluff is normally going to be good into whatever the final Pokemon's going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a Grass type like a Superior, or maybe a Fighter, maybe a Mudslapper, although I guess if there's a Mudslapper, they probably would use that against Drapion. In comes Fly. It does end up drawing our final shield. Our opponent, I guess they lose the game. Good stuff. Must have been, I bet it's like a Grass type or something in the back. Superior is very common with Talon, so GG there to our opponent. Next game, going to see a Morpeko as the lead, and this time the Talonflame on the save swap, a much, much better matchup for us here. I mean, the last game was honestly not the worst matchup for us to see, but this game is so much easier to deal with. I can instantly throw the Rock Tomb and then swap out to our Shadow Drapion. Getting rid of a Talonflame is always one of the best things that this team can do. I know at this point Morpeko doesn't have a lot of play into this team. Flame Charge will ramp their attack stat up just a little bit more, but because they were already debuffed, they're only at neutral attack right now, so it's not going to worry me that much right now to just spam out Aqua Tails and maybe let our Drapion go, or maybe farm this Pokemon all the way down. I feel like it's kind of hard to give up Switch when you have Claydol into Morpeko, so I will shield this up, because I also get a ton of energy farming this Pokemon all the way down. Because of this energy lead now, I can start spamming out Charge Moves into this Morpeko, potentially putting them in a very tricky spot, and we'll see what their final Pokemon is going to be in just a second here. I think that we're in a very good position, though, no matter what happens, because we can debuff the final Pokemon with Claydol if we need to, and Jump Up is in such a good position just neutrally into most matchups. In comes the Charge Move, but I think that was only 4, and we're able to barely survive the Psychic Fangs here. Our opponent probably pretty upset about that, because now that I've survived this, I can permanently debuff or get the final shield against this final Pokemon. We do get the shield, and in the backline is Superior, a Pokemon that we have Shadow Jump Up ready to go against. Our opponent realizing not much they can do there. GG to our opponent. Next matchup, we're going to see a Swampert in the lead. Not a great lead matchup, honestly. These water and ground type Pokemon are generally a little tricky for this team. Although you don't see like Quagsire or Swampert too often, normally you're going to see like Gastrodon, which is so much easier for Claydol to deal with. But these Hydro Cannons, man, they're going to do so much damage to us here. There's such a spammy Pokemon as well, and I need to go for Ice Beam if I want to do any damage. That nearly one-shots us. That's crazy. That's a non-shadow Hydro Cannon, nearly one-shotting one of the bulkiest Pokemon in the current meta. But because Claydol is able to land the Ice Beam, at the very least, maybe I can neutralize the rest of this Swampert here. I know at this point they're going to get another Charge Move if I don't just shield my Claydol. I have no faster pressure with Fairy Wind or with Poison Sting, so I just go for a one-shield farm down. We'll see what ends up coming in. Yikes, a Alolan Sandslash up a shield. That's just going to sweep us there. I guess GG to our opponent. That, I'm not even going to see the third Pokemon in that game. Sometimes you see matchups like that, I guess. Next game going to be another Ice type, though, in the lead. A much more playable one here for our backline. Our lead, though, is going to be in a bit of a more precarious spot where I know Sparkling Aria is super effective into us, but Psywave does almost nothing. So I'm going to shield this up and start spamming out Rock Tombs. I know that we don't need to throw Rock Tomb immediately because Rock Tomb only ever ends up doing, or Psywave rather, only ends up ever doing 1 damage to Claydol, so debuffing them isn't going to be that important, at least as long as you debuff them before they actually throw the second Sparkling Aria. In comes the next Charge. Sparkling will likely be thrown, but they could Ice Beam if they want a bit more raw damage. No, they do opt to go for that Sparkling Aria. In comes the next Rock Tomb, and we'll see what our opponent wants to do. Rock Tomb likely will draw a shield or get close to a KO here. They do opt to shield it up, and since they're double debuffed, I'm going to come in Shadow Drapion and build up as much energy as I can. They actually come in with their own Shadow Drapion here as a counter swap, which likely means the third Pokemon is going to be Jump Off. It feels like that's a very common team. I used it myself a couple days ago. It's a pretty strong lineup, very solid 3 Pokemon here in the current meta, but because I have such a huge energy lead right now, I think my own Shadow Drapion might even get to 3 Charge Moves before a second Charge Move is going to be reached from our opponent here. We go for another Aqua Tail. We're at back-to-back. Let's see if we can win CMP on this next one. If we do, we're in a very good spot. If we don't, honestly, maybe I shouldn't have risked the CMP. Yeah, that Aqua Tail not enough to knock out. I can't quite swap out just yet, so I have to go for the Charge Move and knock out this Drapion. And just a little bit of a waste of energy here, but we're still in a decent position. But that Lapras has so much energy on it as well. I don't know exactly how we're going to win this game. Lapras could go for Ice Beam against our Jump Off. Sparkling Aria as well would knock out both my Claydol and my Drapion here. And the final Pokemon is revealed. It's a Clodsire. So they catch my Crunch, a very good play by them. But because now I see their final Pokemon, I have a game plan. All I need to do right now is build back up to the Crunch. Make sure I always have this energy ready to go against that Lapras in the backline. And if I can Mud Slap them down just enough where an Acrobatics could knock them out here, I should be able to win this game just with raw Charge Move pressure later on in this match. In comes an Earthquake, and while Jump Off is going to have to face one of its worst nightmares here with this Clodsire, I know that an Acrobatics will be enough to knock them out. If they make a catch here, then there's no more energy left over on that Lapras. If they don't catch at this point, then I just knock out the Clodsire. I still have that Crunch ready to go up against that Lapras later on. They end up letting this move through. They can't quite catch just yet. Acrobatics should knock this Pokemon out, and at this point, I have the ability to either go for an Aerial Ace and knock them out here, or if they throw energy, Drapion should close out this game. They let the Aerial Ace come through. If this doesn't knock out, I go for the combo play, but this might just be enough here for a Shadow Jump Fluff to take out the Ice-type Pokemon in the end of that match. All right, next matchup is going to be a Shadow Jumpluff in the lead, a bit of a precarious matchup here, but we do know that we have access to super effective Charge Move pressure and the ability to debuff potentially, which is very nice for us to see. In comes the Charge Move, likely going to be an Acrobatics here, so I can no-shield, go for another Mud Slap or 2, try to get a debuff and throw on good timing, and potentially make it so it's not as tricky of a Pokemon to swap into with either a Shadow Drapion or a Shadow Jumpluff later on this game. We do end up landing that move here, puts them below half HP, in comes a Charge Attack. That was a debuffed Aerial Ace. I know at this point it's not even going to be an Acrobatics, so we can survive that so easily, and Drapion is up energy into, once again, the mirror match. Seems like this is the play a lot of people do, where they end up chip and dipping Drapion, and then they come in with their own Drapion to try to take me out. It's a play that I make myself quite a bit, and because I see my opponent do this here, I would assume their final Pokemon is not going to be the hardest answer to Drapion. It might be a Lapras once again. Aqua Tail number 2 does end up coming through. We survive that move. We go for our own Aqua Tail once again. Our opponent is in a tricky spot. Do they shield? Do they let this go? They do shield. They're going to try to farm us down, but we can come back in Claydol here, make them drain energy, and hopefully our Jumpluff in the backline should be able to win us this game with an energy lead. With that said, it is going to be a little bit tricky to fairy win this all the way down. Poison Sinks will add up themselves, and they have a lot of energy on this Drapion. They can probably go for crunches, although they instantly swap out here to the Shadow Jump Level Pokemon that I was not expecting to see come back in. And because they bring this Pokemon instantly back in, I know exactly where their energy is at. They're 5 away from another charge move here. I'm 4 away from back-to-back, so I can build up to a ton of energy, take very little fast pressure, and try our best to start whittling down or maybe knocking out this Jump Bluff. They do let that move through. I have no idea what the final Pokemon is going to be. At this point, it's make or break. It needs to be a matchup that I have play into. What is going to come in? In comes a Mono Water type Pokemon. Initially, I thought that might be a Blastoise. No, it's a Shadow for Alligator Pokemon that we should have a ton of play into. Acrobatics, if it ends up landing, is nearly going to one-shot here. They're now in Fairy Wind downrange, but there is still that Drapion in the backline with a ton of energy on it as well, and a decent amount of HP. I'm not quite sure I can knock them out here with Fairy Winds before they can knock us out, especially with the energy they still have on that Feraligatr. In comes another charge move here. I go for the catch. It doesn't quite work out, but we are able to reach the Aqua Tail right before getting completely poison stung down. Good patience by our opponent, but by not throwing fast moves there, I was able to survive long enough here to keep our Drapion around, get the Aqua Tail off, and win that game. Ending off the day here with a nice little 3-2 set, we're going to see that we are back up into the 2970s. I don't really know what to say. I was hoping I would be able to get Legend here in this Great League rotation. Didn't quite happen. All right, well, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you want to see more content like this on the channel, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps out a ton, and I would really appreciate it. Thank you again for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.